Let's go to Teatro Argentina, which actually was built on top of the Theater of Pompeii. First, let's talk about the Barbers of Seville. So this theater played many of the top Italian opera, actually not just Italian, but many of the European opera singers and writers during the 1700s. From the 1700s all the way to about the mid-1800s, opera was the biggest deal. It was huge. One of those young men who had a strong ambition to be one of the most famous opera writers in all of Europe was Rossini. And Rossini decided to adapt another opera from a man who was already 75 years old by the early 1700s. That opera was called The Barbers of Seville. Now, Rossini decided to make a comedic spin on The Barbers of Seville. And by doing this comedic spin, he upped the music, made it very lively and vibrant and kind of hilarious to listen to. And also, it was a very wild show with a lot of different costume changes and wild sets. But the first night that The Barbers of Seville premiered, there was a cat, a feral cat, that actually snuck into the theater somehow and started walking across the stage. They tried to capture the cat during the show, not to interrupt the show, but the cat wouldn't bulge, and then they just flung the cat towards the audience. That wasn't the only thing that happened. The main opera singer, the main actor of this opera, The Barbers of Seville, actually fell down on the trapdoor while singing. He fell right on his nose and was profusely bleeding down his nose and kept on trying to sing nonetheless. The supporters of the other opera, the original one, who was a very well-established opera maestro on his own right, those fans were very displeased with this young opera writer, only 23 years old, trying to adapt the great. So they started going and hissing and booing at this young new opera writer, Rossini. This really pissed off Rossini. Rossini, he was a very confident man, and he thought that he wrote a masterpiece. But at that time, Rossini was pissed off. He thought to himself, they hate this and they don't know what real opera is. So Rossini, apparently, according to legend, no one knows 100% if this is true, but there's many accounts of it, that he went onto the stage and started yelling at the audience after the opera was over, because people were talking over it. The main singer was bleeding profusely. There was a cat thrown onto the audience. Who knows what happened to that audience member that caught the cat on his face? People fought back. They started hissing and booing at Rossini, chasing him out of the theater into the streets of Rome. Rossini luckily escaped. If you listen to the very first song in The Barbers of Seville, the overture, you'll hear how perfect that matches with that first night. Second night, Rossini, a little bit embarrassed of the night before, thinking that his new opera has gone to utter shit. No one's ever going to see it again. He's going to be canceled. The likes of Verdi would just overshadow him once again. He stayed at his hotel room nearby and paced in his room the entire night. His mom asked him, hey, are you going to the opera to see the second night? And he told his mom, no, they're going to hate it. I'm done for. And his mom comes back from the second showing. And as she's strutting back to the hotel room where Rossini was pacing back and forth, she told her, hey, you got to come to the theater. Rossini was scared to death because he didn't want to be chased out by an angry mob again. But he goes with his mother back to the Teatro Argentina. And people are giving Rossini a standing ovation. The people loved it. Maybe it was the press from the first night that people were very intrigued to see this comedy of errors. But people actually thought it was a magnificent opera. And it sold out every night after that. So much so that the Barbers of Seville is still one of the top operas all around the world, along with the likes of the Magic Flute and the many beautiful operas of Verdi, who also premiered here. Rossini ended up becoming a master opera writer, forever forged in history.